Today's episode is brought to you by our local sponsor, Banshee Bay Wedding Spirit and Event DJ Services. Thank you so much for your support.
Welcome to Ask a Witch, a podcast fueled by the curiosity of listeners like you. Join our host as she discusses various aspects of witchcraft and spirituality with intellectual and authentic members of the metaphysical community. This podcast is made possible by Blessed Bee Tea and Apothecary, a one-stop witch shop nestled in downtown Traverse City, Michigan. And now your host, the bewitching Bellamy Black.
Hello and welcome to Ask a Witch. I'm Bellamy Black. In this podcast, we answer a variety of questions sent in by listeners just like you. Today with me, I have my best friend, Ruby, who is 80 years old and has earned that title. Ruby,
Woo!
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for asking me to be here.
I am excited to have you on today because our listener question is about a topic that is a little taboo.
And you know how much I like that.
I know you love the taboos.
I love to try to do something illegal every day.
It's one of my favorite things about you. I think everybody should. Maybe I shouldn't say that,
Right,
but
never mind.
Never mind. But I do love that you strive to do something illegal every day. I think like even jaywalking is illegal, right?
Sure, there's plenty
so
of
that's something illegal.
There's plenty of things you can sneak in.
Mm-hmm. Yep, there's like stupid rules too, like can't walk your alligator on a leash on a Tuesday. Like,
Yeah.
let's break those.
Yeah.
Come on. What we want you to do is question society. That's what we
Right.
want you to do. But,
Think. It's
yeah.
not illegal yet.
Yeah, but we are not endorsing being criminals. Kind of. Anyway, make your own choices. But our topic is pretty taboo today, and there is some of it is illegal. So, but we're gonna
here
get
you
into
go.
it. Yeah.
Welcome to the crowd.
Welcome to our episode today. But before we get into all of that, can we talk about the tea that we're drinking
Sure.
today?
Absolutely.
So today
So
we
good.
have Witch Please. And notice, for those of you who can see, and those of you who are not on the podcast, the listening part of it can't see it, but Miss Ruby over here has a mug that says, "Please, I'm from Detroit," which is perfect to put our Witch Please
Yes.
tea into.
Oh, perfect.
I just think it's stunning. The Witch Please tea is used for manifesting your own personal power and magic, and it contains tulsi, elderflower, damiana, lemongrass, ginger, bay, patchouli, heather, and clove. This is one of my top 3.
I love it.
favorite
It's delicious.
It
Really
is. I really
yummy.
love this tea. It's when people come in and go, "What's your favorite tea out of the 30 some recipes I have?" It's like picking my favorite child, and it's really, really hard. But
It's
I
very,
think,
very
I
nice.
think it's got to
Very,
be
very
this one.
nice.
I think
Yeah.
it's this one. This is like definitely one of my favorites. It's very grounding, but at the same time very empowering. It's used for, like I said, manifesting your own personal power and magic. So before I do spiritual training of any kind, I usually drink this tea. This is the one that I go to. If I'm not feeling it for the day, this is the tea I drink. Like
Yeah.
it's very empowering, and there's a lot of like fire and like oomph behind it.
Yeah.
The ginger is very like stimulating. The patchouli is stimulating too.
I have never drunk patchouli.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
So patchouli is actually part of the mint family.
I guess I'm smelling a little bit of it in there.
It's just a little hint of it in this one.
Just a tiny hint.
Our prosperity has quite a bit more patchouli in it, but this one has just a hint of it in there, and I love that earthy, musky like flavor.
I've always liked patchouli.
Me too.
I actually had a couple years where I wore way too much of it because my smeller got too used to it.
Oh,
and
sure.
it was bad.
I
I
always
left trails of,
so I'm a dreadlock barefoot hippie. Of course, I have patchouli
yeah,
everywhere.
everything.
Yep. And when I first started working on Mackinac Island, my roommate was like, they were showing me my new room that was employee housing, and she's walking ahead of me and she's like, "Oh, somebody smells like patchouli." And I was like,
Oops.
That's me. It's got to be me. It's me. And she's like, oh, but we ended up being best friends. And so it
Well,
worked out fine. But I was like, oh my God.
one time when I was in that phase, I went to visit my parents, and my dad took someone aside and said, "What is that
What is that
horrible
smell?"
smell on Ruby?"
These dirty hippies.
Oh,
I think people either love patchouli or they hate it.
really
And
hate it.
yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with like
Overdoing
overindulgence.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my parent or my mom, when she was growing up, my aunt and her went camping, and my aunt had a vial of patchouli essential oil and spilled it all over their sleeping bag. And so their whole tent just smelled like patchouli for like the whole day.
Yeah.
Or their whole trip, and so now my mom hates that smell.
Well, sure.
But like,
Yeah.
so I don't know. It can be over pungent very quickly, but this is just a nice little
Yes.
hint of it. And I'll say,
very tasteful.
even if you hate the smell of it, the taste
The taste
of
is
it
nice.
is different. Yeah.
I've never drunk patchouli, but it's fun to try it now.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So
Thank
I
you
do
for the
really
tea.
love this tea. It also has Damiana in it, which has some psychoactive properties
Yes, it
to
does.
it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a little bit of what we're talking about
We're
today.
talking about that today.
But you would have to drink a lot of it.
Yeah.
You'd have to drink a lot of it or smoke a lot of it.
You'd have to get the bottle.
Yeah, a whole bottle of it.
I
for
love the bottle that it comes in.
Oh yeah, is it?
It's boobs. It's a beautiful round woman with boobs and hips, and
Where is this bottle?
maybe I'm wrong.
I get it in like herb form usually, but are you getting like a perfume or like
there's a liquor, a liqueur.
Oh.
And it's in a bottle, a goddess bottle.
Oh, I gotta get me some of that.
But I'm not sure. I don't know why I'm thinking it's Damiana, but we'll have to check. But
yeah,
I think that's what
sounds
it is.
hot.
It is very
I'm
hot.
into
I like
it.
to hold I like to squish it.
Yeah.
But it is psychoactive.
Yes,
Makes
it is.
you feel
Oh,
good.
I bet you it's like right next to the absinthe on the shelf.
Probably. Oh, that reminds me of another joke. I'm not going to tell it right now. Well, I could tell it, but we're not talking about that sort of thing yet.
My lady, a message has arrived for you.
So we got our letter.
All right.
So here it goes. It says, "Dear Bellamy, I want to expand my mind and open my third eye. I am consistent about my meditation practices, and I feel I have been successful with lucid dreaming and astral projection. But I still want to go further. From what I can tell, my next logical step is to go on a medicine journey. I have toyed with the idea of using sacred medicines like ayahuasca or psilocybin, but I know people also use LSD and DMT. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on sacred medicine journeys. From what I can tell, it's best if you have a guide/babysitter. Where would I find someone qualified to assist me? I don't just want to party. I want to expand my mind. Any thoughts are greatly appreciated. What a long, strange trip it's been. Sincerely, Tripping to Enlightenment."
Great letter.
Fun.
Well,
I appreciate this letter because, like we said, this is an illegal topic, right? And in a lot of ways, it's been some of it's been decriminalized,
Right.
which is wonderful. Some of it's being researched more often. Some of
Yes.
it is protected for sacred medicine journeys. So we can kind of get into all of this too. But before we get into all of that, Ruby, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, some of your background, your spiritual background, and what brings you to the couch today.
Okay. Well, I've been passionately pursuing spiritual things since I was really little. I wanted to know, why am I here? What am I doing here? Do I have a purpose? I want to know what my purpose is. And so I've studied comparative religion in college, and then I got a master's degree in contemporary spirituality. And, I do all kinds of, it's something I'm really passionate about, and I've done some medicine work.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of practice in sitting.
In
I'm
like
a sitter.
babysitting and guiding.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us a
They
little
don't
bit.
call it babysitting.
Mm,
They call it, facilitating, or
Sure.
they might say sitting, but they don't say babysitting.
well, it was like slang for us to say babysitting.
Yeah.
like I'm gonna go get a babysitter so that I
Yeah.
could go do this.
Yeah.
But I guess it is a little derogatory to call
Well,
it.
yeah. I
It
mean,
kind of takes some of the
yeah.
specialness out of it.
Now, there's a big deal in Boulder, Colorado, MAPS, MAPS, and they train people to sit. There's a very extensive training program you have to go through to be it. I mistakenly called up and volunteered thinking that they would just take me.
Oh,
Then I found out you have to go through
like
like
all
3
this
years
training.
of training. I said, oh, okay, never mind. But they will be happy to take you on a facilitated trip. Although, anyway, I don't know. Oh, I'm supposed to be talking about my own thing.
A little bit.
Yeah. So one of the ones that I really was lucky to do was I got to be in a peyote ceremony that was a funeral for a very dear Native American friend of mine. And that was very powerful. And I also got to have an ayahuasca journey with shamans from Peru, which was quite amazing.
Yeah. That's
And
so fascinating. I would really love to delve into both of those experiences. So we're here with Ruby, who's had multiple medicine journeys and has sat in and been a guide and a
I've been a
facilitator
guide, yes.
for multiple medicine journeys.
Yes.
Before we get into the journeys themselves, and I want to hear about those experiences that you had too, and I'd like to share some of my experiences
Sure.
also. But I want to mention a little bit here first. So our reader had talked about, I love that they started with, I'm consistent with my meditation and I am working with lucid dreaming and astral projection.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that.
So I think that first and foremost, like all three of those things are so important. And when people come to me and they're like, I want to work on my clairaudience or clairvoyance or
Clairsentience. Yeah.
all the things. And they're like, or I keep having deja vu and I don't know why this is happening. Or I keep having weird dreams and I don't know why this is happening. My first conversation with them is meditation. Meditate. And I tell them, I say, your brain is a muscle and you have to take that muscle to the gym. And the best way to do that is through meditation. And there's so many great meditative practices out there that just help you strengthen that relationship that you have with your brain.
It's very, very important.
It is, absolutely. And I always recommend a book. It's called Psychic Witch by Matt Oren. And I swear I should get some kind of royalty or something for how often I recommend this book. But and it's a fairly new book, but I really love it because it goes through, 50 different exercises. And it starts with just basic meditation. Just count to 100. Like, that's how it starts. If you can count to 100 without thinking of something else, that's awesome. And then count backwards. And then once you can do that, count to 300. And so it really starts with just this basic, like, just count to 100.
Just exercise
it.
To train your mind.
Right. And then it talks about different visualizations and different grounding techniques. And I love this book, too, because it marries the world of, like, the psychic world with the witch world. Because sometimes those are viewed as separate practices. And really, they're very intertwined with each other. So, I really love this book. And we'll put a link in the show notes. And maybe Matt Oren will give us a little something, like a hello or something would be awesome. But I literally recommend this book like 1,000 times a day, just because I think it's a really good guide and a really good start for people working on their brain power and that mind connection. Talk a little bit about lucid dreaming and astral projection too, for people who aren't aware of those topics. So lucid dreaming and astral projection kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Have you had experience with lucid dreaming or astral
No.
projection?
I think I've had astral projection, but I don't know how I can't prove it.
Sure. I don't think you have to. I think it's just an experience.
I did have an experience where I was praying really hard for someone who was dying, and usually you don't get feedback about what you're trying to do, but after she died, her daughter called me and said she thought I was in the room.
Oh, see?
So
Yeah.
I think that's astral projection.
I would call that astral projection. Yeah, you projected your
I
energy
was
and
praying
your
really
being.
hard for her.
Yeah.
But the thing about, she says she's already good at meditating, lucid dreaming, and astral projection.
Mm-hmm.
So, my first thought is not to do medicine, not to do a medicine journey, because she's already in really good space.
Yeah.
Being able to do that.
Yeah.
She doesn't really, my thought is she doesn't really need the medicine, that she could just go deeper into herself.
Yeah. So that's like one of the first questions I had here as like discussion topics is to journey or not to journey.
Yeah.
And why to do so. So I had our friend Marco, one of our first episodes, he's a Paco, or a Peruvian shaman. And I was like, one of my first questions to him was, do you facilitate medicine journeys? And he's like, no, I don't, because you don't need them. He's like, my first
Yeah.
conversation I would have with
Good for
somebody
him.
seeking a medicine journey is asking them why they feel they need that. What about that
Okay.
feels necessary to you?
That's wonderful.
I think so
That's
too.
really good.
I think that, in a day and age where we are now, it's real easy honestly, it's easy to go get drugs.
It is.
It's
They're
super
everywhere.
easy. They're everywhere.
They're legal now in Michigan.
And decriminalized, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times you never know what you're going to get. You never know what it's cut with. You never know like what you're finding out there. That's why like these like sacred facilitated, indigenous practices, being a part of those that's way more sacred than just getting a hit of acid off your body.
Way more
like,
sacred.
It's way more
Way.
sacred. And so like there's differences in like how you approach this perspective, to journey or not to journey. And to your point, exactly, this young person is already experiencing heightened third eye activity.
She's well on her way.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many people come in here and are like, tell me about lucid dreaming. I've never been able to do that.
Right.
How do I even do
Right.
that? Like you're 80 years old and you
I've
feel
never-
like you've had,
I've tried it, but
maybe an experience like that,
Yeah.
and I've actively worked on it. So I've actively had maybe a handful, 10 to 15
It's a rare
lucid dreaming
thing.
/ astral projection experiences myself.
Yeah.
And just like for some like definitions, lucid dreaming is when you're in a dream and you are in control of that dream.
Yes.
So you can say, I'm going here. I'm going to fly to,
Yeah.
another place and I'm going to be present. Astral projection is when you like leave your body and you can like see your body underneath you. And there's some people say there's like a tether, like an umbilical cord between you and your spirit self, and your spirit self can travel all over the world. So you could astral project to France, and like you could,
Right.
like say you have a friend in France, you could land in France and be like, hey, I know that you were up at 3 a.m. eating Oreo cookies.
Yeah.
And then you could call them and they'd say, I was up at 3 a.m. eating Oreo cookies. How would you know that?
Yeah.
So lucid dreaming and astral projection are really interesting kind of phenomena, I guess, but really they happen because you've trained your brain to be able to handle situations like that. But really it's about being able to open that third eye and that metaphysical perspective of your brain that we don't have quantification scientifically yet to decipher, right? Like that's something that's, like I said, like a phenomena. Like it's something that we don't have a lot of science behind how our brains are able to do that or what they can do.
Well, just like what we were talking about a minute ago, I guess you could pretend that your third eye is open.
You could.
Just go around and
I think a lot of people do.
yeah, and brag about it.
Yeah, and brag about it a lot.
Whether it's true or not doesn't matter, But
Yeah.
But the other thing that we did talk about earlier is I heard that they gave some of this medicine to Buddhist meditators, and they tried the LSD or whatever it was, and their result was, yeah, it takes you somewhere, but you're supposed to do it. You need to do it yourself.
Yeah.
You can maybe that's spiritual bypass.
It is like spiritual
I
bypass.
think that's a little
It's
bit like spiritual
yeah,
bypass.
it's like I'm gonna take this like
It's cheating.
it is. It is. It's you're getting the results without doing any of the work,
Yeah.
right? And when you're not ready for the
It can do
it
damage.
can do damage, and people can have negative effects, and they can have bad trips, and they can have, it could turn them off of things entirely.
Well, that's another
Your
good reason to
shadows
have a
come
sitter,
out. Yeah,
a
yeah,
facilitator.
totally. Yep.
to help you.
But yeah, if you're ignoring your shadows and your shadows don't exist to you, so what I'm saying
be
is
doing
like, everybody has shadows. Everybody has past trauma. Everybody has, anxiety or issues or insecurities. And those are shadows that follow us everywhere. And if you are ignoring those shadows, if those shadows mean nothing to you, I think there's a possibility that you could have a medicine journey or trip and not have any of those things bother you because you are psychologically turning those shadows out. They don't exist.
Yeah, you could.
But I think if you are addressing those shadows and those shadows are weighing on you or they're like really heavy for you, you could have like two interactions, right? Those shadows could become bigger than you and they could take over your psyche and they could really harm you in a journey.
Yeah.
Or you can address those shadows and learn to dance with those shadows and learn to be a part of those shadows and learn that those shadows are also a part of you. And that can be a really beautiful thing. But if you aren't ready for that, if you haven't done any of the spiritual work for that, those
Don't
shadows
do
are going to
medicine.
hurt you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Just
not going
don't
to be
do
good.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a friend who facilitates MDMA journeys, and that is really good for trauma. But he says, don't ever do that by yourself without a sitter. Never, never do that. But I think you're right. I think it's more important to develop our spiritual, our inner, go to the depth of our own soul or something.
Yeah.
On our, without chemical or plant assistance, at least for a while.
First.
I mean, get
Yeah.
really good at your own. I don't know how to even. It's like get solid with your own spiritual center, maybe.
Yeah.
Before you try something like that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's something that's highly overlooked. I think there's a lot of there's a big community of like festival goers and
Right.
the Coachella crowd and like they're all out there just like I think that they're like actively seeking spiritual experiences. I think that's something that they tell, that's like in their rhetoric, right? Like it's in their dialogue. Like, I
Yeah.
want to have a spiritual experience, like, and so they're taking these drugs in order to have that. But there's a difference between talking about it and the vibes at the festival versus
It's
like,
not love and light when you go deep into yourself.
yes.
It's not something to be cute about. It's not cute.
No,
It's not cute.
it's not.
When
Yeah.
you go into the depths of your own psyche.
Yeah.
It's scary.
It
and
can be
it's-
intense.
Yeah.
And it should be used therapeutically. And I guess that's kind of like the to journey or not to journey. Our recommendation is that if you are going to journey, one, do it in an appropriate way.
Make sure.
Make
yeah.
sure that your
That it's
substances
safe.
are
Make sure it's safe.
Make sure that you have a facilitator, that you are aware of what you're doing and what you're getting into. Know
That you
thyself.
trust.
Yes.
Yes.
Know yourself and know what your needs are and who you are. And do it therapeutically. Do it for a purpose. Do it for something that you're trying to get out of it. I've watched documentaries and such on psilocybin and how they use psilocybin to help people get over the fear of dying.
Yeah. And I accidentally kind of overdosed on MDMA one time. And I didn't even know I was afraid of death. I used to, brag about how I wasn't
Sure.
afraid of it.
Well, here comes this shadow that you didn't even know was there.
Right. That's why I mentioned shadow. It's very helpful to be very cognizant of your own shadow if you're going to do medicine work.
Yeah.
But I experienced death, and
like through that experience.
for the experience.
Mhm.
And they say that that's one of the things that you can learn from MDMA is fears that you might have. It can take you there, so you don't need to be afraid of it anymore. And I feel like that's what happened for me. I don't feel as afraid. First of all, I didn't know I was afraid of
Yeah.
death.
Yeah.
Then I died, and I was afraid.
Yeah.
And now, after I had the experience, I'm very glad I had it, because, I learned a really deep thing
Right.
that I didn't even know was there.
Just to clarify, you didn't actually physically die.
No.
You just like psychologically died
I-
within that experience.
Yeah, I experienced being in the void with no body.
Yeah.
And the funny part is that the part that was bothering me was I didn't know how. I had promised my granddaughters that when I died, I would try to be their guardian angel. I didn't know how to get to them.
That's
I was like, how can I find them?
Yeah.
I'm not in a body and it's void. It's all black. How can I find them?
Oh, that's something that I want to talk about. We have a couple death and dying episodes coming up here shortly, and I think it would be very unnerving and very confusing as a spirit, like when you do die, to be like, where do I go? What am I doing?
Yeah.
So
that's what I
experienced. It's a little off topic, but it sounds very jarring, and it sounds
it was a very crazy experience,
I bet.
But now I notice that I kind of like to go and hang out in that void.
Interesting.
It's kind of comfortable now.
Yeah, it's like a hammock.
Empty. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. So I guess so tell us a little bit. You said you had two very moving medicine journey experiences. One was with peyote and one was with ayahuasca.
Right.
So tell us about those experiences.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start with something funny, which is that in both of those, well, especially in the peyote ceremony, they tell you ahead of time. This was a Native American. It was the deal, the whole deal.
Mm-hmm.
There were two medicine men in there, and we were. It was a 1-year anniversary of the death of our grandmother friend, Grace Spotted Eagle, and they told us ahead of time that if you throw up, that it's because you have so much negativity to get rid of. So of course I projectile vomited all over the
I would
TP
too.
and in the ayahuasca ceremony. I was doing okay. It was very ecstatic, but the thought crossed my mind was, if I don't throw up, am I contaminating other people? That thought came through my mind, and I barely made it to the bathroom, and I vomited all over the walls and the ceiling and the sides and everywhere. I didn't know I could have all that stuff in there.
Like The Exorcist.
And somebody was in there, their job was cleaning it up.
Oh.
And they had buckets, but when it started coming up, I knew I needed to go somewhere else.
Take care of it.
But it was very ecstatic. But when I was finished, I said, I'm pretty sure I don't need to ever do this again.
Yeah, that purging is huge.
Purging it's rough.
Yeah.
And I don't mind throwing up. I throw up a lot, but that was big time.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you were at the ceremony in honor of somebody who had passed.
A friend of mine who had passed.
And so then you had this experience where you purged, and then did you go back into the tent?
The way they do it in the peyote ceremony is somebody comes with a shovel, you stay put. Somebody comes with a shovel and cleans up your vomit and puts cedar down or something to cover it up, and maybe I think they might even have some hot coals or something, but they get rid of the vomit. And that's embarrassing. It's like, okay.
Yeah, came in here to clean up after me.
I'm the first one that threw up,
Thanks. Yeah. And so then you just sit there?
Well, you just sit there and watch them clean up your mess. And then, but I had a very profound experience of the group mind.
Okay.
I felt like I had a feeling that it might be what enlightenment felt like, because you're aware. When I came home, I said, I changed my mind. I don't want to be enlightened. It's too much responsibility.
Interesting.
Because the the being in the group mind, it was like, oh, wait a minute. If you're in the group mind, you have to care about what happens to everyone.
To every single person.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
And
lot.
and I felt like that was way over my pay grade,
Yeah.
And
Not me.
Rinpoche thought I was kidding. But I came back and I said, never mind.
Yeah,
It's
too much.
It's just so scary.
Interesting. I wonder if that's how it is. Like, I wonder if that's like the group mentality where you kind of like dump your soul back into the collective, right? Where you're conscious, your
I
soul
think
is
it might be
collective.
because they talk about the stream,
Uh-huh.
the mind stream. And another thing that I still don't have I don't know the answer to exactly, but many years ago, I went to a conference on ethical investing. And one of the people who was talking said, he just used the phrase crown chakra alignment types.
Mm.
The only thing I can think is that he's talking about, people who are in that mind stream.
Mm-hmm.
Like they talk about primordial mind. They talk about, right now I'm thinking that there is like a enlightenment channel.
Mm.
And if you do enough work, you pop into it.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else that's done that work is in that mind stream kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just imagining
I think that makes sense.
that.
I think that works with the concepts of collective consciousness or Christ consciousness too.
Exactly.
So I think that I mean, there's philosophical and psychological stories that they have, or like I remember in college hearing this story about like monkeys on an island.
Yes,
and
the 100th monkey.
Yeah. So like,
yes, it's like that.
So you tell me a little bit about the 100th monkey.
Okay, the story that I heard is that there's a bunch of monkeys on the island, and they dig potatoes out of the sand and eat them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one monkey finally thinks, oh, why don't I rinse this damn sand off of off the potato? So he goes and rinses it off and eats it. And then within a couple days, every monkey on the island is washing their potato.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not because, it's because of the group mind.
Yeah. So part of the story that I remember is that there's monkeys on other islands.
Oh, right. Yes.
Who are also now rinsing
they
off
do
their
it.
potatoes.
Yeah.
And so they're a whole other island away, but because this one monkey thought about it, now this other monkey on this other island is going to think about it too.
Yeah.
And so is that because they both just evolved at the same level and they both decided at the same level to go do that? Or is it because this one thought about it and now everybody else is thinking about it too? And so I think that happens with like our collective consciousness too.
I do too.
So I think that we're all just monkeys. We're all just monkeys on this planet, just trying to live together. And
vomiting monkeys.
We're just trying to evolve and deal with our shadows. And so there's something about the collective consciousness that, and I didn't know when I was going to talk about this, but I think that one thing that I think is interesting. So I will say that back in college, and actually after college in my early 20s, I did quite a bit of experimentation with psychoactive substances, and it wasn't always in a medicine journey environment, and I regret that in some ways, but I also know that I was with people that I trusted. I also know that the substances that I was getting were vetted and were confirmed, and I knew what I was getting into. I didn't have at the time I was like laid off from my job, so I didn't have responsibilities. I wasn't in a partnership. I didn't have kids.
Well,
so
you
I had
it very responsibly.
I had this opportunity to take advantage of these psychoactive drugs. And I was gifted most of them, so I didn't seek them out. They were gifted to me. And I think that had a big aspect on my
that's kind of interesting.
Because I was grateful for them. So I was grateful for the opportunity to participate with these friends of mine, and I had at this point I'd already kind of dedicated myself to witchcraft practices. I was meditating. I would say that I was seeking higher consciousness, but I also like to party. Like I was in my early 20s. Like that's what I wanted to do, and so but I was conscious of my body. I was not aware of my shadows.
Okay.
So those didn't really come up. So, which I wish now I would love to have that experience, because I think I would be able to address some of the shadows.
You're in a different place.
Yeah, totally. But I was very aware of my body. Early 20s, I'm very aware of my body.
Oh, yeah.
So I was very aware of how my body was feeling, what felt good, what didn't feel good. I was aware of
That's all important.
thirst and
Yeah.
hunger and, all the tingly sensations and all the things. And it was nice to be in my body. And I remember that now, even,
Yeah.
years later. So, but one thing that I noticed, and this will go back to that collective consciousness, is that I found after that experience that I could pick out of a crowded room anybody else who had also done psychoactive drugs.
No shit.
Like if I was in a room with people, I could look at somebody and be like, you've been there, you've been there, you've been there. Like I could tell who had been there and who hadn't been there before. And I could still kind of do that. Not necessarily because they've done psychoactive drugs, but because they have opened their mind to a certain extent. Like they've been in that mind stream before.
Yeah.
Like you're still dripping, right? Like I can still see you dripping with mind stream. Like you're maybe not in it right now.
Yeah.
But you still have some of it on you, and I can tell.
That's pretty cool. That's really cool.
And those people, all of those people that I've met, and this is just my experience, the majority of them have some kind of opening that's greater or more so than people who haven't ever tried to open their minds, physically through meditation or, conscious practices or with psychoactive substances. So I feel there's a lot of people in this world that are just completely closed off and just have no ability to open their minds or no want or desire to open their minds.
That reminds me, I just learned 2 new things about all this. One is I listened to 9 hours of a program called Awakening from Alzheimer's because I'm interested in not having dementia.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in not having dementia. And I listened to 9 different hour-long videos with neuropsychiatrists.
Yeah, interesting.
And
I think we should all be interested in not getting dementia.
Yes, I think so. I think you can probably still find it. It's an amazing thing. Anyway, at the end, there were the last 2 sessions. The neuropsychiatrist is talking about that psilocybin mushrooms are really good for the brain.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very good for the brain, for memory, but also, it smooths the brain and it I guess we can get ruts in our brains from abuse and being a victim, and the psilocybin mushrooms actually fill in the grooves.
Filling potholes.
Yeah, they're filling the potholes in our brain.
Interesting.
And then the other thing I learned from my friend that does the MDMA sessions with people, he microdoses LSD every day for his memory. Or not every day, but he has.
Sure.
You can get very small microdoses of LSD, and he says he uses it for his memory.
Yeah.
Which I'd never heard of that either.
I'm not sure about it for memory purposes, but it definitely.
That's what I mean. I never heard it for memory.
Stimulates the brain. So, any kind of like electrical stimulation has got to be helpful, right? So I know quite a few people, especially since psilocybin's been decriminalized, who have gone down the route of microdosing psilocybin. Yeah. And I just hear really, really positive results about that. A lot of universities have picked it up and are doing a lot of university studies on psilocybin. Actually, I think like Wayne State is doing stuff.
Really?
Like there's stuff all over.
Duke University has been doing experimental work with MDMA for quite a few years now.
Yeah. So isn't Duke the one that's like haven't they been doing like work on psychoactive drugs for like decades? Like
if they have, I don't know about that, but I do know that recently they've had amazing results with people who are traumatized, a lot of veterans and things like that they have in the 90 percentile of success.
That's amazing.
That is incredible.
Yeah, I think using these drugs therapeutically for PTSD, for trauma,
You
for
must have a
abuse.
sitter, though.
Yeah.
Absolutely must
Well,
have a
especially if
sitter.
you're dealing with that shadow work, those
Right.
giant shadows that are
Yeah.
just so painful.
Yeah. Shadow, that's another thing I finally really appreciate is that shadow work is extremely important if you want to have spiritual development.
Yes.
It's really, really important.
Yes, and it's the hardest part
It
of
is
spiritual development.
so hard to face it
It is it's terrifying.
and access it. You
Yeah.
know, it's like, it's not, you don't want to find out these things.
Right. Well, a lot of people walk around not even knowing that their shadows exist.
Right.
Right? So, like, and honestly, personally, I've been ignoring my shadows for the last 30 years because I wasn't in a place where I was safe enough to address those
Yeah.
shadows. So I was shadows of feelings like with my family. So I had some sexual abuse as a child. Like, I repressed all of these things.
Right. That
And
stuff is hard to get out.
and I had abusive relationships in my 20s, and it's like I still never felt safe enough until after I married my husband. And my poor husband, we get married, and all of a sudden I'm like, great, I feel safe now.
Now
Here are all my
everything's coming
shadows.
out.
I projectile vomited all over him, like just like you did with the ayahuasca ceremony.
Yeah,
But
how
it was
nice
all
for him.
It's all with my shadow work, So it's all just like, here are all of my demons that I've suppressed for the last 30 years. Now
Well,
I feel safe enough.
You've got a good one if you
do.
feel safe
I really do.
enough to let that go.
Yeah.
That's so wonderful.
I feel bad for him because
Well,
he's like
he came in here today. He seems perfectly happy.
and he's dealing with his shadows
Well,
too.
sure.
And I love that. I love that we both feel, but we kind of joke. We're like, what do we do? Like, we married each other, and now we're like,
Yeah.
we're
Oh my
ridiculous.
God.
We're
Yeah.
handling all this like trauma and these and our fights and everything are all like, it's just like, oh, this all comes back to my
Yeah.
shadows. This all comes back to the trauma that
Well,
I've
it'll
had.
come out. You don't even have to seek shadow work in a way because you're on the spiritual path, and if you're paying attention, it'll come up, and you'll say, "Okay, I got to deal with this."
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
having
it's
a
like I took
problem
my
with this.
blinders off. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, there they are.
Yeah.
Those shadows have always been there. They've always been next to me. They've always been following me, but now I can see them. And so now I'm able to address those shadows. But it is hard.
It
is
is really
hard.
hard.
There are definitely days in the month where I'm like, nope. Like 1 out of 10, do not recommend. And then there's days where I'm like, okay, I got this. I can handle this. And it's hard. It's hard to be on a podcast and like, sit here when I have demons or when I have shadows that I'm
Right,
working
yeah.
with, and like be able to put those aside and be like, I'm going to do a podcast today.
Yeah.
Like, that's hard to do.
It is hard.
I feel fine today, but
That's
last
good.
Monday we canceled because I was not feeling it. I did not
That's
feel
good.
okay to do that.
That's
Yeah.
good that you knew to cancel.
It is.
Well, there's 2 things that I would say if anyone is interested in shadow work is there's a really good book, Owning Your Own Shadow. I can't remember right now.
We'll try to find it. We'll try to
I want
list
to
it
say
in the show
Robert
notes.
Johnson maybe
Sure.
is the author. But then Andrew Harvey and Carolyn Mace did a whole series on shadow. It was really good. And you could find that on Sounds True.
Mm.
They have, if you join their thing, I think it's taped. So it's like many episodes of talking about
Is it
the
on
shadow.
YouTube or?
It's just online.
Oh, okay.
If you go to Sounds True, which is based in Boulder or somewhere in Colorado,
Okay.
they have all these spiritual tapings, and I listened to the whole thing.
Oh, fun.
I at some point I realized, okay, I'm going to be doing. I think COVID. I've been doing. I thought COVID is a perfect time to do shadow work
Oh, sure.
because it's so miserable anyway.
Yeah.
I'm just miserable
I
as
think a lot
hell
of people did. I think a lot of people, without even really knowing it, did a lot of shadow
Yeah.
work during that time.
because you had to.
Yeah, because you're just sitting by yourself.
Yeah.
You're just with you,
Yeah.
so you have to.
The other thing.
Or people disassociated.
Yeah.
And just did not address
Right.
things at all.
Well, the thing that I think I learned from doing shadow work is when something comes up that is disturbing me, like if I'm angry or I'm afraid or when any of those things, okay, that means that is telling me that I have something to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Period. That
Yeah.
is my that that I
Yeah.
have to look at.
Oh, especially jealousy.
Oh my
Jealousy
God.
is a great one for that.
Let's talk about jealousy.
Yeah, you find somebody and you're like, oh, they're making me so angry right now. What is it about that person that you see in yourself
Right.
that is making you
That's
uncomfortable?
where it's coming from.
That's really where it's coming from. It's you
Absolutely.
projecting your own insecurities on that person, and that's why you're feeling jealous. So say somebody comes in and they're boisterous and they're loud and they're confident, and you're like, oh, that person's so annoying. They're so loud and in your face, and I hate them. But you're really just jealous because they have the energy to stand up and be who they are and be proud, and you don't feel confident enough to do that, and that's why you're feeling that way. Things like that happen all the time. But
and those are opportunities.
Yeah.
Those are opportunities to work. It's like spirit or my soul is showing me what I need to work on right now.
Yeah, and you can do all that without drugs.
Oh, yeah.
You can do all that without drugs.
Right.
And that's just you paying attention, right? So, I mean, yeah, I think, there's reasons to and reasons not to do.
I like what Marco said.
Yeah.
He doesn't do it.
He doesn't do it.
People don't need it.
He doesn't need to. He doesn't need to do it, so I totally get that. There's other podcasts I've listened to where people are like, the reason that I'm the person I am today is because I went to Peru and did an ayahuasca ceremony or like whatever, and it's like, I could see that being a very spiritual experience. I could see that being a very moving experience. I also know you need to have thousands of dollars in your bank account to be able to go do something like that.
Yeah, it costs
to
a lot
go
of money.
to a fancy retreat facility to go do something like that.
And I can
know-
give you two. We can put it in the footnotes. I have two places in one in Peru, and then the other one I think might be in Costa Rica.
Sure.
But they're ayahuasca medicine places.
that are legit.
They're legit. They're very expensive, but they're the real thing.
Yeah. We'll love to list those.
Yeah.
There's a couple people ask me all the time. They come in here and they're like, where do I find those medicine journeys? Because they're coming into a spiritual facility and they're looking for those experiences.
Right.
And I'm a big believer in not judging people on their journey. And I try not to ever preach at anybody like, this is what you should be doing, or how dare you
Or
try to
don't
do
do
that, or
this.
don't do
No.
that. Like, that's not for me to say.
That's not.
So
that's
if
none of
you're
our
here,
business.
yeah, if you're here seeking those journeys, like that's fine. So I have a couple people who have approached me about, they tell me like, they're like, if you find somebody who's interested in doing a medicine journey, let me know and I'll show you where we can go. Like
They've told you that?
yeah. So there's people who facilitate medicine journeys.
And they come in here and told you they're
told
available.
me that. Yep, and they've told me that they're available. And so then that becomes my job to vet out the people who are interested. And then say, okay, I know you. Do you want to go here?
Well, I guess the
haven't, because
facilitator has to do the vetting.
That's right.
That's
yeah.
That's
totally
or his
true.
job.
Yeah. So, but it's interesting because people come in here and they're seeking enlightenment. They're seeking a higher form of consciousness, and they always want to go higher and higher and higher. And why not use these drugs that people are researching and all these, like they want to use them in a therapeutic way and in a spiritual way. And I'm not going to sit here and tell them not to do that.
No.
But I'm also not
going
to throw myself in the middle of like trying to orchestrate that either,
Right,
because it's also not my job.
No.
But it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's super interesting. The other thing that's interesting is that I get people in here who thank me for my time or my energy by giving me drugs. And I think that that's part of the like festival culture.
It is kind
right?
of the
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
It's like, I appreciate you so much. Here's some mushrooms.
Yeah.
And these are really strong. And I'm like, wow. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that transition of energy. They just sit in my underwear drawer, and I ended up gifting them to somebody else who wants them for different purposes and trade for something here or there.
Yeah.
I don't
Sounds familiar.
But yeah, so it's like, but it's interesting. It's like that, but that like that mind stream consciousness that I appreciate your time and energy. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for seeing, not just seeing me, but seeing me with your third
and being
eye.
you, and being you, and being here. And
yes.
Thank you because you're here.
Yes. And so
It's a gift to
here
the
is
whole
a
community.
substance
Yes.
that has made me feel wonderful, and I'm going to gift it
Yes.
to you. Well, it's an interesting thing.
I'd
Is
like to check out your drawer or something.
My underwear drawer is fantastic, Ruby.
Could I look in your underwear drawer?
You can come over whenever you want, Ruby. Yeah, so I think there's like pros and cons to drug culture, right? Like obviously there are addictive substances, there's addictive personalities out there. I always like the cakes and ale is a huge part of like a pagan ceremony, is to have
Yeah.
ale, which is beer or mead, with your ceremony.
Right.
So adding alcohol and weed is like a huge thing too. So like smoking like while and a lot of people are like, I really love to smoke weed before I do my practices because it really gets me in tune with what I got going on. And then there's other people like, but the thing is like, try it sober first. Like always try it sober first. There's been times when I have wanted to do a ritual or wanted to do a ceremony where I wanted to add wine into the mix. And I find that I just lose my magic. It just dulls who I am. It dulls my body. It dulls my spirit. It dulls my energy. And I don't get to have that intense magical experience that I want to have because I've dulled all my senses. And so I've experimented with that, and I'm here to say that I don't find that adding alcohol or weed into my practices helps me personally.
I think it's different for everyone.
I think it is different for everybody.
I have found that certain edibles, enhance my meditation practice.
I think that that's interesting too.
Some people get nothing from it.
Sure.
But for me, that's the one that enhances my meditation.
Yeah.
I've had some very spiritual experiences.
Some edibles are very somatic. They're very body centered.
Yeah.
Whereas some are more mind like altering, or like your that conscious space.
Well,
can be
I've
filtered,
found some that are, they take me to a very, very spiritual place.
Yeah.
Which is so cool.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people who take or who smoke, and they get very creative.
Yeah.
They like tap into those creative juices, and they're just like, I'm here and I'm focused and this is where I'm at. And that can be very meditative. That can like to just delve into your creative practices like that. And I've done like micro dosing with psilocybin where I'm just like, man, I just feel so good right now, and it's just like, I feel so creative, and like maybe I want to write, or maybe I want to dance, or like do music, and it just like, it's very enhancing.
Do you know what happened
in
to me?
some ways?
The first time I microdosed, which was recently, I had never done it before. I could play Scrabble like a monster. I could.
Well, there you go, fighting dementia right there.
So good at Scrabble.
I find that, and actually, I've noticed this with alcohol in particular. There's but I could see this working with a lot of different other things. There's like a sweet spot, right?
Yeah,
like
there's a sweet spot.
if you have,
you need to stop at the sweet spot.
That's right. So if you have like, I'll use this example. So if I have 1 to 2 drinks, shooting pool is awful. Like I'm the worst shot ever. I just blackball every time. Worse than
usual.
Worse, just terrible. And I find that 1 to 2 drinks in, like I'm slurring my speech. I sound like an idiot. My brain's not there. But if I have 3 drinks, I'm perfect shot.
Alrighty.
Perfect shot. Like that's like the sweet spot. 4 drinks, I suck again.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's like just like finding that homeostasis within that chemical homeostasis within your brain. And I think that this could work too for like psilocybin or with marijuana. Like, so if you have like, the too much or too little, and it's not going to be right. And that's hard to it's hard to experiment with that. It's hard to know what's going to be okay and what's not going to be okay, especially if you're working with something harder like LSD.
Yeah.
Or like, how are you supposed to know that, right? So you can't, it's hard to just go out there and just experiment with these psychoactive drugs like that.
It is.
You have to be very careful with
that. The idea that's coming to me as you're talking about that is to do it in a friendly, gentle way.
Yeah.
if you're going to experiment, just a little bit and
Yep,
to
start
see.
small. And we say that with herbalism too, like with
Yeah,
dosage, like start with a small dose.
right.
See how that feels for you and give it time. I'm not saying like a half hour later, don't take another whole cap, like
Right.
give it some time, give it 12 hours, give it 24 hours and see how that's feeling for
Yeah.
you before ever trying to take any more. You just have to be conscious
Yeah.
about what you're doing. The other thing is like, it's a sacred medicine, right? So your relationship with this sacred medicine matters. And I talk to people about this too, like, so, and I think this works really well with alcohol too. So like, even if you saw alcohol as a sacred medicine,
Yeah, you
having
can.
that relationship with it
Mm-hmm.
in a positive way where it enhances how you're feeling and it enhances your mood. But if you disrespect it, it's going to bite you hard.
Right.
And you're going to be hungover and you're going to be puking and you're not going to feel great tomorrow. You continue to disrespect it and it's going to wreck your body and cirrhosis of the liver and you're going to have other issues and like it'll wreck your relationships. So that's disrespecting that drug. That's disrespecting that sacred medicine. And I think the same could happen with LSD or ayahuasca or psilocybin or anything. If you're disrespecting those sacred medicines are going to come back and bite you. And that's kind of a concept that's brought up by Carlos Castaneda
Yeah.
in his books. And I find too that there's a lot of people in this in the metaphysical world who come in and they're like, listen, I've read Carlos Castaneda, like I
Yeah.
get it,
Yeah.
And I think people should read
Oh, I do
the
too.
teachings of Don Juan and all the other books. I think they're really fascinating.
Yeah, they get you kind of juicy, they juice you up to want to find things out.
Yes. I will preface by saying that I find Carlos Castaneda to be infuriating most of the time because I don't know if this is just like from I kind of feel like it's like a male female thing, like a brain perspective.
Yeah.
But he's an anthropologist in this book, right? And so he goes and he meets with this Yaqui Indian,
Mm-hmm.
this Don Juan, who's a medicine man within this tribe, and he learns all these things from him. But Don Juan is like sitting here going, this is the lesson you need to learn from peyote or ayahuasca or whatever medicine journey that you're on today. And Carlos is always like, what is the lesson? I don't get it. And you have to read 12 chapters before he gets the lesson. And I'm like, what don't you want? Like, Don Juan is telling you right now what your lesson
Right,
is for
what's
you to
the
learn.
problem?
What can't you learn? What aren't you picking up? And I find that like in all 8 books, it's like the same thing. It's like, come on, get
Yeah,
it together.
yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah, it is exasperating.
It's a
You're
little
right. I
exasperating.
haven't read it for so long.
All right, so we're back. We just had to take a potty break. That happens. We just actually we recorded 2 episodes in a row. So the fact that we're sitting on a couch for 2 hours is quite
And
a lot.
drinking big cups
And
of
drinking
tea.
big cups of tea. So we are back now. We were talking about Carlos Castaneda, and so I just his books are very interesting. I will say that like it's the books themselves when they came out, they were treated as fact. So he was like, it was written by an anthropologist from like this objective professional experience, and all of his trips and his experiences were written as if they were a fact. There's some speculation as to him like fictionalizing, especially the sequels and the additional books that came after, and some of his trips and his perspectives like kind of got a little bit far-fetched for some people. But that being said, I mean, this connection to your third eye and this like other dimensions and other realms, like it's not in science yet, right? So like who's to say whether or not it was factual or fictionalized? Like the experience is really what matters. The lessons is really what matters. I just, like I said, like I find myself like wanting to shake Carlos, because if I had Don Juan sitting there teaching me all these lessons and I was like, what are you talking about? I would just be like, from a teaching perspective, I would be infuriated.
Yeah.
But like just reading the books, I get kind of like frustrated. And I don't know if it's like he's just stubborn and he's just not getting it, or I don't know if he's like just really trying to grasp onto that like academic, like educational perspective where he's just trying to take it all in and like really find logic in every single thing that's happening, but that's like missing the point, right?
Yeah.
Don Juan's like, find that femininity, like find the flow, find the energy, you know? I will say that Don Juan had a student named Florinda Donner who wrote a book called The Witch's Dream.
Yes.
And it's an excellent book.
I really like that
And
book.
that one is like, I feel like you have those like Carlos Castaneda perspectives, those lessons that you're learning.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit easier to grasp for my brain anyway. Maybe
I really liked being able to read that book.
I love that book. I recommend that book a lot too. We'll also list that in the show notes. Before we get done here today, we're kind of a longer episode right now, but I wanted to just talk about getting high on life.
Yeah.
And how you don't need drugs to get high. You don't need alcohol. You don't need weed. You can just get so high on life. And I'm not talking about jumping off a bridge, right? Like you don't need to have like huge adrenaline rushes in order to get high. But there's these beautiful energy pockets all around us that are just so invigorating when you are paying attention to the energy around you.
And then there's always inner joy.
Yes.
Inner joy. It's there. It's always there.
People forget about their inner joy. They forget about, I always, my kids and I too, we always talk like when we're getting cranky or whatever, we always go back to gratitude and what we're grateful for.
Gratitude is the key to joy.
So much joy.
Yeah.
It's just a release of endorphins just thinking about those things. But I some of the things that get me high on life are little things like when I, pick up something for somebody who dropped something.
Yes.
Today, a lady, I took my daughter to this little diner here in town, and we were just sitting there having lunch, and some older lady came in and gave my daughter a stuffed animal.
Really?
Like, what are the who does that? And then I was thinking about like how great it would be to be an older person to just put stuffed animals in a bag, and how nice it would be to just like spend my day handing out stuffed animals to kids. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
I love this lady. I love that she did that. My daughter's face just lit up. That made me high.
Sure.
Because my daughter's so happy, and she's squeezing this stuffed animal. It's her new best friend. She named it Patch. It's adorable.
Aww.
And what can I do for this lady besides thank her? I bought her coffee, but all I want to do is just like thank this lady for what she did, for spreading that joy and that positivity in the world. That makes me high. That makes me feel so good.
Yeah. I think that it's those little things. It's like a secret almost.
Mm-hmm.
The tiniest things can give you joy.
Yeah.
To hear a bird, all of a sudden, it's quiet, and then a bird song, just little things.
There's birds right now.
Just now you heard one?
Yeah, just now when you said that. It's witchy, Ruby.
Maybe she's listening.
I love it. Yeah, it's just so beautiful.
Things, yeah.
Yeah. But you have to feel it. That lady could have given my daughter the stuffed animal, and I could have been like, okay, yeah, crazy lady handing my daughter toys. Like, what the heck?
Excuse me.
Yeah, like, who are you?
We were talking.
Where did you get that? Where did that come from? Is it a thrift shop stuffed animal? Like,
right.
I could have been negative about it.
You could have been.
I could have been terrible about it, but instead I saw the joy that it brought her. And then the joy that it brought my daughter. And like to be able to witness that made me feel so good.
Right.
So I was paying attention and I felt that, and it made me feel high. It elevated my mood.
Absolutely.
Another really good way to get high is taking cold showers.
Really?
Do it.
Cold showers?
Cold showers. They say it releases more serotonin in your brain. It's actually something like a 20-minute cold plunge releases the same amount of serotonin in your brain as a bump of Coke does.
Oh.
But you run high on that endorphin for 12 hours, whereas Coke only lasts for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So like cold water is a huge, huge thing right now. That's something that's like super, and I could be wrong about the facts, but I start with a hot shower because I have sore muscles. So that always like loosens it up. But then I finish with a freezing cold shower, and it takes your breath away.
Oh yeah.
But it's very invigorating, and then it stimulates your body, and it helps with pain reduction, it helps with inflammation, and it helps with all kinds of things that are just really good for you. Go take cold showers, because that's a really great way to get high. Like high.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
It's in your shower. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much all we have to talk about today. Again, we'll preface this and warn by saying you have to be careful. Drugs are illegal. They're not, like, if you're gonna do it in a safe environment.
Be responsible.
Be responsible.
To yourself.
Be of a certain age.
Safe.
Like,
Yeah.
understand yourself from a personal perspective and from a spiritual.
Do your shadow work.
Do your shadow work. Like, so we're not saying like 12-year-old kids should go out there and do drugs. Like, we're not saying that. We're saying that if an adult is going to do this, to do so with consciousness.
Yeah.
Again, we're not the police, so we're not going to tell you not to do something, but we're also going to tell you to be conscious and to make ethical and moral decisions for yourself.
And be safe.
And to be safe, and to always be safe.
Sure, you're safe.
You are a strong, powerful individual, and who you are. You have a good brain. Use it. Use it in the best way. If you guys have any questions, or if you disagree, feel free to message me, because I'm happy to engage with those conversations. Whether they change my mind or whether I change your mind, it doesn't matter. I always love conversations. Ruby, can people email you?
Sure.
Okay, we will list your email in the show notes for people. Otherwise, Ruby can be found here at the shop.
That's right.
Sometimes hanging out with me.
That's right.
And causing trouble.
I like to come over here and hang out. And
me too.
Kind of be, a little smart aleck and
good
stuff.
I like it. Yeah, for sure. Ruby also sells product here in the shop. She sells some herbalism products. She's been an herbalist for 40 plus years.
100 years.
100 years. Her products here in the shop are really awesome. They're under the title Ruby Roots.
Roots.
If you have any questions, or if you're looking for those products, feel free to ask me. Let me know, because they're awesome. You know what I need more of is your dandelion elixir.
Oh.
That is like sunshine in a bottle,
It
and
is.
I really love it.
Yeah, that stuff is incredible.
It's so good.
that is. I actually had a friend. He bought a big bottle of it, and he called me and said it was an aphrodisiac.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. I kept it in my freezer, so it was
That
like
is the best way
a little
to do
cold shot of sunshine, and I loved it so much.
It's just got alcohol, but it has it's very labor intensive, because all it has is the yellow petals of a dandelion.
That's it.
It takes a long time.
To pick all those.
And I'm sneezing, and
He loves me, he loves me not.
yeah. But the dandelion elixir, that's the first time that I experienced. I was in my friend's backyard. She had these big, fat dandelions, and I experienced, I'm getting goosebumps. I experienced some of the dandelions saying, "Pick me, pick me."
Oh, I love that so much. I love it so
They
much.
would
They're
be
so
popping.
excited. You can taste that in the
Yes.
elixir. You
Yes,
can
you
taste
can.
the joy and the positivity from that.
Yes.
I love that.
Pick me, pick me.
Oh, I love it. Well, on that note, if you want to find us, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, all at Ask a Witch Bellamy. We'll list those handles on the show notes. If you want to send us a listener letter, please do so. That's what this podcast is fueled on. It's your listener letters. We need to hear from you. So ask us questions, send us in all the questions that you have. No question is a stupid question. We want to hear everything that you want to talk about. You can send them via email to bellamyblack333@gmail.com, or you can send them right to the shop at 116 East Front Street. That's the South Suite, Traverse City, Michigan, 49684. That comes right here. You can email us or send us those letters. We want to hear from you. Those listener questions are so important. Other than that, you can come visit us in the shop too, because Blessed Be Tea and Apothecary is pretty awesome here in Traverse City. If you need an excuse to get up to beautiful Traverse City, this is a good excuse to do so. So I think that's it. I think we'll call it a night.
Okay.
Ruby, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I
it
love
was really fun. I
It
love
is
you.
fun. This is fun. I love having your perspectives here. Thank you guys. I hope you have a great night. This is Ask a Witch, and I'm Bellamy Black. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
This has been Ask a Witch with Bellamy Black, a podcast fueled by the curiosity of listeners like you. We have a strong presence on the World Wide Web. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Ask a Witch Bellamy. Check out our live recordings on our YouTube channel at Ask a Witch Bellamy. Handles are listed in the show notes. For a chance to meet Bellamy in person, visit Blessed BT and Apothecary in Traverse City, Michigan.